the song jumping in really quick. So you guys know when we record the podcast, we sit down, we record a multi-hour conversation, and then it gets broken up into the weekly episodes that go out on YouTube. And so when we filmed this, uh I had not even set up my fundraiser on Ko-fi yet, and I had no idea if I was being overly ambitious, if I was hoping for too much. But I did really think, I'm like, well, even if there's like 4 episodes and it goes for a month or so, the fundraiser will probably still be open. I did not expect to make goal in 48 hours. A little over 48 hours. I set it up Sunday night, and by the time I'd already gotten a donation before I even posted about it on social media or in the Discord. But by the time I woke up Wednesday morning, I had raised the $250, and just I'm absolutely wonderstruck at watching the numbers go up was absolutely incredible. Um, when when we started Two Women Talking, I know I was just a random chick that maybe like a couple of you knew from Twitter, and maybe and you guys had no idea who I was, but you were willing to listen to me, and you were willing to give me a chance. You guys, you went out and bought my book when I published it, and you guys have supported me so much. But I still did not expect this, and I'm I'm absolutely floored, and I understand why people of the Academy Awards now say they're so humbled when they do their thank you speeches. I always thought that was kind of dumb. No, I am humbled, and I cannot express how much it means that you guys want to support me, and you want to that you guys were willing to put down to help me get a map for my fantasy romance book. Um wow. That's just about all I can say is just wow. Thank you so much. I really truly appreciate it. If I may be so bold, um if you've read Calidus Chronicles, you know that Calidus is the capital city in the Republic of Cardea. So the map I just funded was the map of the Republic, and I have decided that I have the audacity to set up a stretch goal for a second map. It's another $250. This one would be a city map of Calidus itself, and the artist I'm commissioning for these, Cartography Bird, her work is absolutely gorgeous. She is a professional map artist. She works with traditional publishing houses as well as indie authors for their fantasy maps. Just her work is absolutely spectacular and absolutely gorgeous, and I want to make my books as incredible as they can be, and I think the maps would be extremely valuable and beneficial to the story. Um, so yeah, I have the audacity to say, hey, can we do it again? Can we do a city map as well as the territory map? And but just, guys, it means so much that you guys have bought my book, and that you listen to Two Women Talking, and you guys value my opinions enough to listen. And thank you so much to Liana for giving me this opportunity. I've made it very clear I'm a diva. I like attention. I like people to see and appreciate my work. And this, even so, thank you. Thank you so much. Just wow. I don't have words. It means the world to me. And I'm absolutely blown away by the support. Thank you so much. Um yeah. It thank you. Thank you.
It's this idea that's been perpetuated where it's like you need to raise awareness. You can't
you can't ignore something that's happening. Well, one, you're already ignoring a ton of shit that's happening in the world.
I don't know of anybody who's not aware of what's going on over there. Informed, probably a lot of people are very uninformed, but not aware?
Yeah.
Come on.
And it's, what do you want me to do? Because I'm not posting about it on Twitter, because I'm not posting it anywhere, because that's just not what I want to do. But nothing I can post and nothing I can say is going to change it. It's like when they held candlelit vigils in my town for Ukraine, for peace in Ukraine. I'm like, Putin is never going to know you did this. And even if he knows, he doesn't give a fuck. This is so performative.
The brand of bar vodka I like happens to be Russian. It's Stoli. And they pulled it everywhere for a while. And I sat there going, okay, I'm not sure what this does since you already paid for it. I don't think it's even manufactured in Russia anymore. But also, so what? This isn't going to deter Putin. And sure enough, all the Russian products are back in liquor stores now, or as we call it, the LCBO. And the war's still going on, and it didn't do shit.
And PayPal they didn't close accounts of people in Russia.
Yeah.
But they made it impossible for them to use.
Yeah.
So I follow a surprising number of Russian creators on Instagram and stuff. And there was one cosplayer, her Ko-fi completely shut down because she couldn't take payments anymore.
That's not fair. She can't do anything about what our government's doing.
And she's an LGBTQ person in Russia.
Yeah, great. Cut her off. Brilliant. Awesome. Genius.
Yeah, a burlesque dancer at that.
Yeah, like those are the reasons I am very not knee-jerk about this stuff. And I do think that a lot of activist circles are profoundly toxic. There's a reason I consider myself an advocate, not an activist, and I'm not a joiner. I do not trust people who the only thing they have in common are their politics, because they're toxic spaces. My inclusion in a group should not be contingent on right think. Because in order to be effective long term, because all these things are long-term things.
Oh yeah.
And you have to be in it for the long run, not make a bunch of noise because it feels good. If you get into activism to feel good, you're doing it for the wrong reasons. It's miserable work. And you need other things. You need people who are like, all right, you didn't get this one. You know, we made a mistake here. We have to regroup, try again with different tactics. That's not what they do. They just keep running off the damn cliff because they won't admit that not only is your messaging a dud, but the entire way you've structured this, the entire way you're thinking about this is actually destructive. I'm talking to a couple of people right now who are really involved in, trans activism and everything. And because of a personal thing that blew up and got really huge, people just turned on them on issues. And to me, the people who did that, they're disgusting. And I said to them, I said to them the other day, they showed me something somebody did. And I said, I don't know whether to say, I'm so sorry or good riddance. Because with me, the attitude is good riddance. If people are just, I didn't get terribly comfortable after J.K. Rowling got me branded a pedophile apologist, because I knew that a lot of the people who thought I was great because I was saying the right things would think I was Satan the minute I said a quote unquote wrong thing. And sure enough, a bunch of them turned on me on Gaza. And I didn't get comfortable because I knew it was going to happen. I've been down this road before.
There's an author named
Sarah J. Maas, who
Yeah.
she's very big in fantasy romance. I've brought her
Yep.
up before. But so she's Jewish on her father's side.
Yeah.
I know that's a bit of a caveat traditionally, but she wrote an article about exploring that side of her heritage.
Yep.
And that she visited Israel and she called it a magical place, which I hope so. Humanity has been fighting over that same strip of land for like 4 or 5,000 years now. I hope
Yeah.
it better be magical. I'm being snarky.
Right.
But she also talked about she also talked about how she was proud of her grandmother's service in the IDF. And like, this woman is my age.
Yeah.
So her grandmother was in the IDF like 40, 50 years ago, if not more. So apparently that makes her a Zionist.
Oh, it's ridiculous. I mean,
and people, and we mentioned talking about cancel culture, but it fits the topic here. So I'm going to bring this up as well. So a few weeks ago, I showed you that post from that one author.
Yes.
Who, after a school shooting, she made a whole post on Threads about how, oh, the school shooting happened in Iowa, and that's where this one book she wrote about bullying is most banned. And maybe this could have been avoided if this bully had read her book. Well, or this bullied child had read her book, and it was so tasteless, and she doubled down on it later. But here's the thing. So Sarah J. Maas, a few years ago, she also had a post where she did a cover reveal for one of her books, and she said, so I know there's a lot going on right now with a president that's trying to strip our, this is back in like 2018, 2019, with a president that's trying to strip our rights, and there's still no justice for Breonna Taylor, but hopefully this can make things a little lighter. So here's the cover for my newest book. And should she maybe have name dropped Breonna Taylor? I'm willing to say that was questionable.
I get what she was trying to do, but she was playing defense at the wrong time.
Yeah. So people have said she was using the name to try and sell books the same way. So the other post was from Jodi Picoult. I'm just going to use names to avoid getting confusing, saying, oh, well, if my book wasn't banned and this person had read my book, maybe they wouldn't have gone and shot up the school. Versus Sarah J. Maas saying, hey, I acknowledge this is going on, but like, I still have a marketing schedule to keep up with. So here's my book cover. I view those as totally different, but people regard them as the same thing. And they use it as an example of, oh, Maas is extremely toxic. And, you know, she takes advantage of these things and she's a Zionist. And why are people getting hyped up? She has a book coming out in a couple weeks, which of course I'm going to read, but her editors really need to start doing their job better.
If she has them.
Well, it's the problem isn't necessarily the writing. It's her books have gotten really bloated.
Right.
And I'm like, you could cut half of this. Like, just most of us are here for the smut anyway.
Right.
And the drama. So it's like, you could cut half the shit and then I wouldn't get bored with the book.
Well, see, there's an example though that people, trust me, when you do things that are commercial, when you do things that make money, people can be exceptionally cruel. And it really is hard to know what the right way to go is, and you do go through a period where it's like, I want to do serious stuff, I want to do things that are great and win awards, because you're looking for that, again, that external validation that just isn't gonna come.
And here's the thing. I remember years ago there was so Stephanie Meyer, any of her fan mail, anything that came to her, it was all through her brother, and like he would screen everything so she didn't see any negative emails or stuff.
I don't have a problem with that. Well, any negatives, no. I think that some that seem like, all right, this one might be worth seeing.
And it's like, obviously, we don't know the details of exactly what got through, but people mocked her for that, for being too sensitive. And I'm like,
Yeah.
so what gives you the right that she needs to hear what you have to say about a book you don't like? And look, I have plenty negative to say about Twilight.
Talk
I
about a toxic relationship.
talk about a toxic relationship, talk about the Mormon propaganda that's entirely baked into the series.
Yep.
It's kind of funny, over on the Discord I've been doing commentary as I've been reading through Fourth Wing
Oh,
by
that's been
Rebecca
wild. I would never touch anything like that.
Well, it's funny because someone on the Discord was, and this is in the author's channel, but someone was talking about how, why is the second book still on the bestsellers list?
Mhm.
And I was like, I feel the need to defend this because it is women's literature.
Yes.
Not literature. It's women's pulp, essentially.
Right.
And I watched a video last night that was talking about the history of the dime novel
Nice.
and pulp, and pointing out that, yeah, stuff like Fourth Wing is essentially the modern pulp. And it's like, I'm like, oh, I love pulp and
Again,
I defend that, so I have to. But so someone was, they had issue with it still being on the bestseller list. So, and I'm like, okay, Crimson Rogue is taking too long to do his reviews, so I haven't adopted his opinions. So, I think I need to read it myself.
Right.
And and form my own opinions. What's that? How do you do that?
Mhm.
So, and like, the Discord funded it, and like, they gave me money on Ko-fi so I could get the audiobook.
Yep.
And so now I've been entertaining everyone with my commentary on it.
And it's good
like,
because I wouldn't be able to choke through it, but it's good to see I don't know. I like seeing people who are into that stuff engage with it. I learn something from the opinions of people who are interested in that kind of thing and are still like, oh God,
Yeah, and it's like, there's plenty that I've criticized, especially in the world building and the characterization and the enemies to lovers romance, that I'm like, oh my God, this just stop. But you know what? If people like it and enjoy it,
as long as you put the toxic bits where they belong, go ahead and enjoy it. I mean, it's funny because I've been finally got around to Our Flag Means Death. I feel super guilty that I didn't get to it until it was canceled. But that is the story, among other things. They're playing with the toxic romance tropes. And it's very funny. And I like that they're showing behavior that is often romanticized when it's a man and a woman. But because it's two guys, they can show how fucking awful so many of the bad boy tropes are, and so many of the conflicted, I don't know, do I love him, do I not, not saying all it just shows how toxic the whole thing is. But because it's funny, it's not horrifying, and it's so completely self-aware, and everybody in that cast is just MVP. But everybody's so good. I don't normally like Leslie Jones, and even she's well cast in this show. But
and go on.
It does show that, because they really play up in season 2 the whole obsessive spurned lover thing that we so romanticize, and they telegraph it so well, right? Like it's an everyone is gay kind of show, and you either embrace that or you don't. But they telegraph all the dysfunction and all the problems with closeted gay culture. And I mean, at one point, Blackbeard is cutting off this guy's toes because he's just so he can't admit he's sad in public, kind of. And it as like I said, it's funny because it's self-aware. There is a place for dark humor And I
Like-
think one of the things that brought out this toxicity in younger adults is they didn't grow up with the black not black as in race, like dark comedies, like I mean, the 90s, it was everywhere, right? I mean, Married with Children was a shining example of a show intended to be offensive and toxic, and everybody was terrible in some way, but it was a comedy. And oh God, they were ahead of its time with the manosphere, because they had this whole club in it called No Ma'am.
Yes.
And they were so ahead of its time. And you jump to the exact same behaviors in something like Big Bang Theory, and you're expected to relate to the characters and almost agree with them, instead of, you know, something like Married with Children, where it's dysfunctional. They treat each other like shit. It's bad. That's why it's funny.
And it didn't. Sorry, I'm trying to phrase the words. The show knew it, and it didn't justify any of them.
No, that's the thing. There was no, they have their reasons. They're terrible, pathetic, sad people.
And it was almost like a cautionary tale.
Oh, it was. It was, don't be the sports jock who marries the pretty girl in school and gets a house and works a job, because that means your greatest days are in high school.
Well, specifically, he knocked Peggy up.
Yes.
And that's why they had to get married. And the writing knew it. Whereas you get to something like Big Bang Theory, and
the Big Bang Theory always bothered me with the whole train the girl to be a nerd trope. And any woman who came into it already nerdy, unless they could just abuse the fuck out of her, they didn't know what to do with her. The best scenes in Big Bang were the three women in the later seasons. And because when Amy was a really funny character, when Sheldon wasn't on the screen, when he was on screen, she was pathetic and an abuse victim. And it's amazing how many women, how many older, smart women, like I'm talking women with PhDs, thought Sheldon was awesome. And it's like, holy shit. Because these women are basically Amy Farrah Fowler in real life. And it's holy shit. This is a thing. You know, the struggle is real. What is going on? And I think what's going on is when you become seen as an intellectual, you get separated from being perceived as feminine. And so you settle, you know, you do internalize this idea that you're a walking brain, and, you know, you're going to have to take a certain amount of shit from men because that's just the way they are. And come on, you're not the right kind of girl. You don't have that inherent goodness and light and beauty that somebody like a Shadowheart does. You know, instead you're Karlach with an infernal engine that can't live outside of Avernus, which is one of the hells. So you're ultimately doomed. Just enjoy the ride for as long as it can be and expect to get abused. And people don't like talking about this. People get very uncomfortable when you talk about, because that idea of being an innately good woman is not the same as a feeling of innate worth as a human. Because innate worth as a human means every individual deserves basic dignity and decency in terms of treatment. The idea of an innately good woman inherently means certain women deserve to be treated well, and certain women just have to accept that they're never going to be.
And it's, like I said, it's this cultural pendulum. And it's something I've been thinking about recently, is it's like, you know, we see culture shift. And I don't think balance is possible culturally. I don't think we're ever going to have world peace. I don't think we're ever going to have balance between the sexes, unfortunately. Do I want it? Yes. Do I think it's going to happen? No.
I
But
think we can make pockets. I
yes.
think the entire world, that's just, you can't get your arms around it.
Yeah. And to be clear, I am a huge advocate for personal balance and finding balance in your life. I absolutely believe that is achievable.
Yeah, I
Like,
mean, my attitude is, if other people want to be sexist pricks or homophobic pricks or racist pricks or whatever, you go ahead. I'm going to offer a better product. We'll see which people prefer.
exactly.
Yeah.
But I've been working at work. They play a lot of 2010s pop music.
Yeah.
And like pre-2010s, early 2010s. And honestly, I think someday we're gonna look back at the 2000s and regard it as like another 80s era in pop music, because my God, that music was good and it was fun. But
there was some real quality pop in the 2010s, not gonna lie.
Oh yeah, early 2010s, 2000s, but it's like then we got to nowadays pop music is a bunch of mumbling assholes and child stars who have not worked through their sexual abuse trauma.
Wow.
Ariana Grande makes a whole lot of sense when you remember she was Dan Schneider's favorite.
Oh, I didn't know that. I mean, Ariana Grande, that whole talk about, the whole thing with her is they treated it like some big triumph that she wanted to do music that was basically too old for her, meaning sexualized content. And the record companies kept saying, no, no, no. But is the story that her and her mom pushed to let her do the music that was in her heart? And Ariana Grande's problem has always been her material. She's got an incredible voice that she's going to destroy if she keeps singing that way. But her content is just, if you can sing, you can sing. You don't have to do as much as Mariah Carey resented it. Tommy Mottola got it right when he marketed her originally as, natural curl hair in a simple black dress, and it's just girl with a microphone, sing, be brilliant. And I mean, Adele is the same packaging.
Yeah.
And Ariana Grande, I think she's done a few things lately that I'm like, all right, that's not terrible. But yeah, I really, and yes, I understand this is a bit paternalistic, but I really thought that people should have protected her more.
I saw a post from Nickelodeon recently where it was, when I was a child, I used to think we'd have blank by the year 2024. And my thought was protection for child stars.
Yeah.
Okay, so for those who don't know, modern Nickelodeon was basically made possible by a man named Dan Schneider, who created all their big shows from iCarly to Victorious and a ton of others starting in like the 90s, early 2000s. Came out, he was a horrible sex pest who abused the girls and other kids on the set, gave them alcohol.
Yeah.
And apparently a lot of their casting parties was young girls in bikinis while the parents were off,
oh God,
being treated to alcohol courtesy of the studio.
And I mean, when you're a kid, you think that's, oh, they're respecting me, they're letting me be an adult.
No.
And I don't think there's anything. A bikini is just clothes.
Yes.
It's the context of that.
And it's, Jeanette McCurdy in her biography last year, the I'm Glad My Mom Died book, she kind of blew the top off a lot of it.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of stuff that was already kind of known but not confirmed. Like, a lot of Dan Schneider shows are characterized by weird foot humor.
Yes.
So people were pretty suspicious when they saw that. Um,
Oh, he's
but
another Tarantino.
apparently, but with a younger taste.
Yeah.
And like I said, Ariana Grande was his favorite, and she got preferential treatment, especially compared to Jeanette McCurdy. And when Jeanette finally left the studio, she was offered several $100,000 in hush money that she didn't
Okay.
take, which is why she was able to write the book.
Oh, good for her.
Uh, Ariana Grande has not said anything, so there's a theory that
She
she
took the
did take
money.
she
Yeah.
took the money. But also, you look at her behavior,
Oh yeah.
and it's like that. It reads like a typical sex abuse victim.
Yeah.
It you can
And
just see.
see this is the thing about women who behave that way. They are victims.
Mhm.
You know, the same way I've taken a lot of shit for saying this lately, the same way that guys who have anger issues because they were abused as kids, they are victims. It is possible to be both the perpetrator of abuse and a legitimate victim. In fact, in most cases, that's true.
Mhm.
And we do need to be better about, instead of shaming these girls for acting the way, the way we're all going, well, of course, that explains so much of their behavior. That doesn't mean the girl did something wrong. It means we need to start wondering, these, let's face it, there is a cultural currency in sexualized young looking women.
I do think that we do still need to draw a line. Like, okay, whether or not the guy, Ariana Grande is in the upcoming movie of Wicked,
Yes.
and there was a big thing where she was having an affair with the guy who's playing Fiyero.
Okay.
And this is where the Ariana Grande and SpongeBob memes came from, because
Okay.
he kind of looks like the guy who voices
He
SpongeBob.
looks like Tom Kenny. Okay.
Or not he looks like Tom Kenny. It's, I think their names are similar or something. I don't
Okay.
remember exactly how
Okay.
it happened. But so and then, she came out with her most recent single a few days ago, and she's like, well, you heard it on the internet, so it must be true. And her fans are on Twitter going, see, it's not true. It's not true. You all believed it. And I'm like, there's still no proof. And like, look, whether he was separated from his wife, whether he and his wife had an open relationship, whatever, whether she was separated from her husband, obviously we don't know the details.
Right.
But it's, we can, so not just speaking to her, but when we have abuse victims like that, I do think it's still important to draw a line and say, hey, look, this behavior is not right.
Oh, you're completely 100%. Remember I said there's no consequences with Shadowheart?
Mm-hmm.
One of the most brilliant lines there was a show called Clarice, which was basically the Silence of the Lambs from Clarice Starling's perspective, or it was stuff after that or something like that. But there was one that she was dealing with a very troubled daughter of a politician who kept saving her daughter because the daughter was traumatized. And there was one line where Clarice, who, keep in mind, is a psychology expert, she's supposed to be, a profiler and all that stuff. Of course, she went into it to get the screaming in her own head to stop. But she actually arrests the troubled daughter for the crimes she committed. And she says to the mother, there need to be consequences.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the most brilliant line in the whole series, because giving people passes on shitty behavior drives another rusty nail into their self-esteem. They know they made a mistake. They know people are letting them off the hook at some level. It is not helping them. As somebody who had to claw back from very, very serious, PTSD, like the whole 9 yards, despair, violent behavior, all that stuff that the stalker likes to insist something I did when I was 16 is still me now. Um, you know, there, if you never hit a point where you go, that was my fault and I didn't have to do it. And yeah, I can do this better next time. You never learn, you never grow, and you never overcome the things that are making the inside of your head a terrible place to be.
Mm-hmm.
And we
And
need to stop making it seem like you're a better woman if there's no consequences. That we see it with Shadowheart, we see it with Bo-Katan, we see it. I mean, I don't think The Boys is going to make Starlight's manipulative behavior into a good thing. They seem very conscious about what they're doing there, so I'm going to leave her out of that one. But yeah, there's this thing, Wanda, like, we let these female characters off. I mean, even Captain Marvel blasting away that guy at the end of the movie. I was less thinking that had to do with some sort of an agenda than some other stuff, because let's face it, in the Avengers, they destroyed an entire town, like literally lifted it up into the ground. What is it, Sokovia?
Yeah.
They lifted it up and smashed it down. Like, at the time, I'm like, oh my, I mean, the war crimes in the Avengers, we know I get in trouble for talking about that. But it's not just female-led stuff there. But when this is designed to be big set pieces in a movie where everybody cheers, and they spend a year cleaning it up because really it was kind of terrible, you see what happens, because now they don't know what to do, because they can't just do the terrible stuff. They've been called on it too many times, and they have no other gear. And that's what happens when, if there aren't consequences for bad behavior, then there's no reason for people to change. People do things that are bad for them because they are doing something. And the whole idea of change is taking that need that is being fulfilled by the bad behavior, figuring out what it is, and finding another way to get that thing.
And I think I've told this story before. I live in an area that is quite affluent. Like, there are high schoolers driving around in BMWs. For people who are in Europe, I recently learned that a BMW is not considered a luxury car.
No, it's like our Chevy.
Yeah. Over here in the US, a BMW is a luxury car.
Yeah, BMW and Mercedes are not luxury cars in Europe. I learned that going to Finland, and there were BMWs everywhere, but they were like, God, they were the equivalent of, I'm trying to think. Those cars, like the old Camrys that were basically like 4 wheels and a box?
Yeah.
That was a BMW. Yeah.
Yeah. So there are a ton of Mercedes and BMWs where I live, and so many Teslas, but that's because there's Microsoft and Google money.
Yeah.
And Facebook and Amazon. So there's money in the area. But I was talking to a coworker who was like 18, 19 at the time. So he'd just graduated a year or two before. And one thing we talked about was how these kids who, they have the rich parents, so they'll get into more and more trouble, but there's never any consequences.
Nope.
So they don't get in trouble. They just get to keep doing these behaviors. And if something does happen, mommy and daddy will cover it up. Mommy and daddy will pay for whatever got broken, until they're going so far, escalating, that it's the doing drugs, it's crashing a car, it's killing someone with the car. And all that could have been avoided if there had been consequences for the much smaller actions. Yeah. And one of the trends the last few years has been what's called gentle parenting, which is, even when your kid is screaming at you and smacking you, you're very gentle and you're very calm and you acknowledge their emotions. And can you guys tell from my tone that I don't like this?
Yep.
But here's the thing. And I saw someone posted that they were like, look, I've tried to do gentle parenting, but my child smacked me and pulled my hair and I lashed out. And someone was like, this is why gentle parenting can't work. Because you need to be, when your child hurts you, you need to, it's okay to one, have a loud response.
Yes.
Which makes them realize, oh, that wasn't good. But
Right.
then also to stand your ground and say, you don't hit me. You
Right.
don't pull my hair and you don't yell at me like
Yep.
that. And it's not about saying, you don't do that to me because I'm your parent. It's, you don't do that to me because I am another human being and you have to respect my boundaries.
Yep.
And
well, I mean, we're seeing exactly what you're talking about with this, universities right now.
Mhm.
And
Oh, yeah.
everybody, people are blaming the woke agenda for this. And it is, I think it is more exactly what you're talking about, a profound lack of consequence. I'm seeing two things. One, record numbers of anxiety because people are reaching adulthood never having made a mistake and having to recover from it. It's the having to recover from it, the way back, learning how to pick the pieces back up. That's what's missing. People make mistakes all the time, but then mom or dad goes in and screams at the principal or screams at the piano teacher or screams at the martial arts instructor. And, either they just, fine, we're taking our business elsewhere or whatever. There's no, okay, you screwed up. Here's how you make it right. And that's okay, right? So young adults are walking around with anxiety spikes off the charts. Saying the wrong thing is seen as the worst thing ever because they're afraid it's going to end their life. And I think that leads to things like, I don't know if you followed that story about, that student group at Harvard who put out this letter and then, owners of major businesses said, we will never hire these people. And if you read the letter, I would not hire these people. It's not that it's Gaza. If somebody had written a letter about a decades long conflict, any conflict like this, and only blamed one side, I would not hire them because it shows a lack of nuance and critical thinking and a blame focused. They don't know how to solve problems. They just know how to blame. And I would not hire these people either. But of course, a children's hospital got a cancer wing of a children's hospital got protested because one of the guys that said, I would not hire these students, I will not hire these students, gave $400,000 to this children's hospital. They protested the hospital. That is just people trying to be making the same mistakes again and again and again, trying to turn a wrong into a right.
And like, this doesn't even surprise me because another video I saw yesterday was from a teacher in Houston who said he teaches 7th grade. These kids cannot, he said they spent 4 weeks teaching them how to answer a question in a full sentence. And that
I know adults that can't do that.
Yeah, and he would give them like a 4-paragraph short story and they couldn't tell him who the main character was. And just all the lack of comprehension, the lack of understanding, the lack of God, what's the word for it? Just extrapolation.
Their brains are scrambled by anxiety.
They're
not knowing the main character in the 7th grade. That's not a teaching problem. That's something much deeper.
Yeah. And I think it's a mix of anxiety, but I do think it's also our education system sucks.
You know what else I found? I've seen this in adults who are highly educated. There is this tick that when something feels charged, they'll say they don't know or they weren't told something. And if you don't If you don't do the work for them, they'll figure it out. But they're so used to, if they just, I don't know, if they flail and act all helpless, someone will do the work for them. But that doesn't solve the problem. That only makes the problem worse. Because if the whole issue is they've got to know what the problem is so it doesn't happen again, going, I don't know, panic, panic, panic. It's just, that's hurting them. That's hurting me in the situations where I have to deal with it. And it's just, even if I dropped it, the relationship would be poisoned. And, that's why it's toxic behavior, because if I can't rely on this person to remember what they're told, okay, I'll grit my teeth and be civil with them, but I'm not going to trust them. I'm not going to consider them a friend. What's the point? And I think people, if we looked at toxic behaviors for what they were, they'd make a lot more sense to people why you shouldn't do things like that. And I think too many people, I mean, there's a heck of a lot of people think they're supporting something when what they're really doing is attacking the opposition. It's not the same thing.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think we have a lot of parents nowadays who it's like their parents were extremely overbearing. And it's, like I said, it's that pendulum of society where it's like you had the parents from the 60s, or like the people from the 60s who then they had kids and they were extremely lax. And then
then they all became yuppies.
Yeah. But then their kids tend to be a bit overbearing with their children.
We got the latchkey kids who were me. And then they went and had kids, and everything was very structured, and there were play dates and all that stuff. And then they had kids, and these are the kids that absolutely hate everything. You're right. It does swing. And I think that it's not really surprising that people are thinking that trad is the answer, because it's the exact opposite of the misery that they grew up in.
And so it's like, I get the appeal of the idea of the traditional family. I really do.
Oh, yeah.
But we have to look at it honestly, and we can't be suckered into this idea of what we want it to be. Like, we can't. Leave It to Beaver is not realistic.
No,
it's
it
a
never
really
was.
pretty it's a really pretty picture, but it's not.
Yeah, that was never a reflection of reality.
And
I mean, I respect the hell out of people who can be fulfilled by family and by simple things, and it's because I'm not that. And my idea of the right path is, if people do want to focus on family, people should be able, like, 1.5 jobs should be enough to raise children, no matter who it is. So one parent, one income.
I agree.
In some way, because I think that if people really want kids and they can't find the right partner, there are a lot of foster kids out there that could use that. And so I think that if people want kids, they shouldn't have to put up with a partner they can't stand to have kids. And if, like you said, it's somebody where, the wife ditches or the husband ditches. My best friend growing up was the child of a single dad. And he was great. I mean, he was kind and soft-spoken, and he clearly loved his daughter. And I mean, looking back on it, I see little signs that the poor guy was very, very overwhelmed. But mom just ditched. And I think that the kids should not be punished their entire formative years because their parents couldn't get their shit together. And there were so many people I work with as adults that, they're bearing the brunt of a lack of supports because their parents were disasters.
And look, here's the thing. This is slightly different, but going back to what you were saying, that one income should be able to support a family.
Yeah.
I I I hate this system we have where it's people have kids for someone else to raise them.
Yeah.
Where it's you put them in preschool, you put them in a nursery, you put them in pre-K, you put them through school. You're not raising your kid. And it's like we wonder why so many kids are so anxious and they feel abandoned and they desperately need someone
because
to
they have been abandoned. They don't just feel abandoned, they have been abandoned.
If you're not, especially the first few years of life, like, why would you have a kid if you're not going to spend those years nurturing that child? Like,
it's funny because the ages of 10 to 14 are actually extremely vital as well.
Yeah, and that's why I'm like, okay, I like the idea of one parent has the full-time job and then the other one is raising the kids, and like you said, have a half income, whether it's a part-time job while the kids are in school or running a family business or something. Just that would be my idea.
I'm gonna wrap this up before I start rambling too much, but then again, it is two women talking. What else do you expect? Yeah. The information for the goal is on the screen if you'd like to check it out. Yeah, just, oh my god, thank you so much. Words do not express how much it means. But yeah, have a great day. I hope you all are doing so well. Until next time, I'll see you next week. I also have a video over on my channel if you want to go check it out. We recorded this before I did that video, so if you want to hear me ramble about Conan for a bit, please go check that out. But yeah, thank you, guys. Thank you so much. Have a great day, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.